Hello and welcome back to another game about Town of Salem 2. In this video, I'm just going to be going over the patch notes from this Thursday, the 22nd of June. It added some interesting things, and it left out, the important feature that it actually brought into the game, so I'll go over that as well. So, first, obviously, new feature, Ghost Games. It added Ghost Games into Town of Salem, and they seem to be, with the last couple of patches, aiming at making it so that ghosts are more influential in the game and have something to do other than just sit there throughout the entire rest of the game. Because as it stands, with the removal of medium, they took out any way to really interact with dead chat, or for dead chat to be impactful, or even have a reason to stick around, especially if your team's losing. Obviously in ranked there's going to be reasoning because people want to stick around. If you don't, it's an auto loss, at least if they go with the old system. But they seem to be adding in features that are aimed at keeping people in-game longer. I'm not sure what I think of that. I think it's probably a good thing and I think it's necessary, but I wish they would just, re-add medium or something into the game. I don't think it was a necessary takeout, but apparently people do. That's fair. Ghost Games. New feature, Ghost Games. Added Ghost Games. This new feature allows you to earn ghost points every time you die and use those points to play minigames. You can challenge other players, or an NPC named Rebecca. You can play Death Guess and try to guess who will die next, or you can death roll and try to outroll your opponent. Don't be the first to hit 0. It's just a bunch of gambling games, basically, where you put a certain amount of points on the line, and I think they're ghost points. I actually haven't interacted with it yet, but I believe they're different than town points. Pretty certain of that. And you get to put them on the line and interact with the dead chat in interesting, fun ways. You can challenge other players, you can challenge the NPC. Oh, and just to go over it, the two different ways that you get to interact here are trying to guess who will die next, and trying to roll with your opponent. You roll a certain amount every time the number you roll in between 0 and I think it's 60, I'm not certain. When someone rolls, the next player now rolls instead between 0 and that number. And it is inclusive, so when someone rolls 1, you don't just automatically lose. You can roll a 1 or a 0, you just have a 50-50 shot, and it continues until someone hits 0. Alright, improvements. Serial Killer will no longer get 2 stacks of Bloodlust when they attack a role blocker that visited them. Admirer Protection will save a bodyguard from a duel now. Interesting that it didn't before. Will it? I assume it saves other things from a duel, so I'm not sure why Bodyguard would be left out of that, or if that's not the case, did they just randomly add Bodyguard as a role that's saved from a duel? No, that wouldn't make sense. It had to have been left out originally. It's a little weird. Necromancer can use Wildling now. Interesting. Intriguing that Necromancer couldn't before. It makes sense, because previous to the newest Wildling rework, Wildling wasn't really a visiting role. It just saw everyone's visits from the town, which, mind you, was completely broken. So glad they reworked that. But now that it's visiting, it makes sense that they would leave it out on Necromancer, maybe on accident, and make it so that Wildling is now finally usable by Necromancer, because it is just Tracker and Lookout, and I don't know, that's kind of nice. Good addition. Apocalypse members will be able to talk at night after silence has ended. I know there was a problem in All Any where Apocalypse members couldn't talk to each other, even if they were on the same team, but I think that got fixed already. I'm not sure what this is about. Roles with Invincible Defense will not die of starvation, allowing Pirate and Doomsayer to get their win. Interesting. That's kind of cool. I mean, that makes sense. I think they shouldn't have died of starvation anyways. But it is more of a passive everyone dies than an attack, I think, so it makes sense that they did. But that's good that Pirate and Doomsayer can now get their win off of that, because they get invincible defense the night they win. Soul Collector now has Astral Visits. That might be a nerf. Because Soul Collector could very easily just claim TI and be confirmed by Lookout if a Lookout's on one of their targets, whereas now if a Lookout's on one of their targets, they're confirmed as not TI. I don't know. It'll have some interesting interactions there, I'm sure. Apocalypse will be notified when a teammate is dueled now. Good. That was already the case for Coven. I'm not sure why it wasn't for Apocalypse. I guess they kind of forgot the fact that Apocalypse is a team, clearly by the All Any thing. Glad that's the case. It's just a thing that should have already been there that is now there. Pirate will now have bloody hands after winning a duel. Interesting. So pirates are going to kind of frame themselves when they kill someone. Okay, it doesn't really matter in any of the role lists I plan on playing because I don't like pirate and I don't like role lists with pirate in it. Mostly that's reserved for all any. I'll play all any some, but you get the point. But outside of that, that's really intriguing. I think I like that change. It's definitely a nerf for the pirate though, because now they look evil whenever they do that. And in all any, it's going to throw in some interesting things, because oftentimes if you claim pirate, people will believe you and go with it. So if, like, pirate gets a kill and a sheriff finds you suspicious, you can just claim pirate, and people will leave you alone. Coven Leader Attack Yourself achievement has been reworked. Removed roll card button from the dock and added minimize and maximize buttons to the roll card itself. That's cool. I like that. I disliked having the whole dock of things, and I appreciate what they did with auto-pinning certain ones. But making them a part of the, like, roll card or actual chat or graveyard, etc. makes it a lot easier to know exactly what you're doing with the buttons. It screwed me up a couple of times when I was getting used to the game. It's not going to be a problem for anyone once they've played a few games, but it's just nicer, nice quality of life improvement. Bug fixes. Fixed overlapping text entry on some Windows machines following passing text into the last will Death Note or Notepad. Fixed several client exceptions and crashes. No way, this shows up every bug fixes because there's always crashes. Nice that they have a few more gone. Fixed issue where opening chat log could cause the bottom chat history window to jump up to earlier text, preventing that player from seeing the new messages as they come in until they scroll down the chat again. I ran into that one. I was a little curious what was happening there. I assumed it was just like some purposeful feature, but it is nice to have that gone. So when you would open chat up, it wouldn't let you scroll down to other things. It would move you up to earlier text. I actually used it as a editing feature in one of my videos on accident because it jumped to exactly what I wanted to, like, highlight in the video. So I was able to keep it there. Glad they fixed that. It was mildly annoying. Didn't really get in the way of anything, but nice to have it gone. Fixed %name % error for Jester when they do not select a haunt target. Interesting. Glad that's gone. Fixed bug where Pirate was getting an achievement meant for Pestilence losing a duel. That's so funny. Really, that's really funny. Fixed a variety of achievements with duplicate names or misspellings. Fixed bug that was preventing win with all Coven, neutral, and all roles achievement from being granted. Interesting, so they had something... Okay. I noticed that those were at like 0% on the achievement things. Glad that's gone. That's it for that fix. The previous one was a couple days before, and that was where they added in the Ghost Town custom modifier thing, which is cool. There weren't any reworks and stuff, so I won't go over that too much, but they did add one other thing. And I'm happy it's here, but I'm not happy the way that it's here. Ranked practice. It exists. And this is your role list for it. Town power, town killing, town protective, town investigative, random town, random town, random town, random town, coven power, coven utility, random coven, neutral evil, random neutral. No pirate. Obviously. Pirate was going to be banned from it anyways. So, what's my opinion on this list? Because this is, honestly, in my opinion, the most important part of the whole update. Funny that it didn't make it into the notes. Just kind of comedic. There's a couple things I think about it. First off, the whole random neutral being included. I think that random neutral in Town of Salem 1, having neutral killing as a guaranteed role, made the game incredibly swingy. Because neutral killing, depending on what it is, you're rarely going to win, but you basically decide what direction the game goes. Unless town is incredibly good immediately, if there's a serial killer, you get 2 town deaths, or town and a coven death. If you get a coven death, coven is screwed. If you get a town death, town is most likely screwed. Random neutral just makes this worse. There are certain ones that sit there and do nothing, such as famine, the precursor to famine, obviously. Admittedly, with famine and death, the 2 neutral apocalypses, Soul Collector and Baker, that are two of the 4 neutral apocalypses that are available, they set timers on the game. When Soul Collector turns into death, you have to get rid of them or the game's just over. Once famine hands out enough bread, one, they're liable to die because people are going to look for famine at that point anyways. Two, almost everyone dies. At that point, the game is basically decided. Both of those are going to suck in the game. I could see death is just too slow to be like a viable thing. Famine is fast, but not going to win many of the games where it actually succeeds at doing what its role wants to do. They will cause definitely a lot of major swings, though. And the other neutral apocalypse is even more. Pestilence is mediocre, isn't going to win many games, it's going to kill a lot of people, and Berserker is going to kill even more people. Berserker is probably the one random neutral that has, outside of neutral evils, that has the largest chance of actually winning ranked games. Maybe, the fact that it goes through town so quickly still is just kind of screwy. Like, it sucks to have a game where a neutral apocalypse pops up. And if you don't have a neutral apocalypse, you're dealing with neutral evil, which is totally fine. Neutral evil is relatively balanced, should be a part of the game. And neutral killing. And neutral killing is similar. Neutral killing is like the middle ground between neutral apocalypses, all 3 of the other ones, and Berserker. Berserker, it kills a lot, is a little bit broken, not going to win a high amount. Neutral killings kill slowly, aren't very broken, aren't going to win anywhere near as much as any town coven. I mean, they shouldn't be winning as much, but even as much as their win rate ought to be, a 1 out of 15 shot, you're not going to have that high of a win rate. You're going to have more like a 1 out of 40 shot of winning the game. Throwing in a single 1 of roll that has a 1 out of 40 shot of winning the game, that just makes the game swingy for everyone else, kind of ruins the atmosphere of ranked. It turns it, and I would say it's maybe okay if they're going with the whole social deduction route, but they really seem to be singling in on making the game more about the technical aspects and less about scum reading players. It's what they did with most of the TI, all of it really. They made them able to just check if someone's evil or if they're good, instead of this is a set of roles, social deduction aspects, obviously if they claim outside of it, but you force them into it. It's more about the technical aspects in this game than it is about social deduction. Obviously, social deduction is still going to be a large part, but the devs seem to be focusing in on those technical aspects. Throwing in something as swingy as a random neutral that in a lot of games is going to do absolutely nothing, and in the other games is going to completely tear the town apart and have an incredibly low win rate, kind of ruins that atmosphere. I don't know. I think that adding random neutral to this role list is a terrible idea and completely unnecessary. Second on that point, they have a random town power instead of the jailer slot. I think that because of how swingy this is and how necessary it is for town to be able to kill people very quickly, town power ought to be jailer here. That gives town 3 guaranteed relatively safe kills on evils. Obviously, Jailer meta's dead, and I don't like having Jailer as the head of the town, but it's still important and useful to have Jailer in this. It makes the game less swingy. Since it's random town power, you can get anywhere from Mayor, Prosecutor, what are your options? You got Mayor, Prosecutor, Monarch, Jailer. I think those are the 4. Mayor, absolute trash. It's about as bad as it was in Town of Salem 1, but there's a couple more roles that counter it. Specifically Conjurer being the actual one that's a problem here. In Ranked, if you reveal and there's a Conjurer in the game, you're immediately getting nuked. If you reveal and there's not a Conjurer in the game, you're just a 1-day vote edition, which is, don't get me wrong, it's pretty decent. That's all it was in Town of Salem Town of Salem 1 was a 1-day vote edition, but it's not enough to swing the game back in Town's favor. Monarch, a lot better than Mayor. Monarch's probably the second best of the town powers because, it gets defense, it's likely to not die immediately. That said, Berserker and other things with powerful attack are just going to run right through that, which a lot of the evils do have powerful attack, the random neutrals. Coven Leader even can get powerful attack once. So when Monarch is revealed, they're likely going to die to random neutral, etc. But they do give town some extra votes, and I think that Monarch being the head of the town is going to be a relatively decent game, but you are relying on town to correctly vote people every day, which isn't necessarily something you can rely on, especially when there's like Berserker in the game that's getting 2 or 3 kills a night, and Coven is either getting screwed over or carried by them. It still just sets the game in the hands of that random neutral. Prosecutor can create some... Prosecutor's bad until the end game, and oftentimes because of... Well, vote for alignment makes it more likely that it's not going to be pointed out. Point is, Pros is bad till the end game. In a Pros game, Pros can swing the game back in favor of town, but they use the town vote to do it, right? So you don't get a second kill during the day, which means that the only reason it would be useful is if town is being sheeped actively and the prosecutor is not being sheeped actively. That's fine. I think it's pretty bad. I think, in my opinion, it is the worst town power. Honestly, in this role list, I see Mayor as slightly worse than it, but Pros is just really, really trashy. Even worse than that, if they go wrong, they kill themselves and a town member, which is just stupid. It doesn't really buff town all that much. Only 2 roles that actively buff town a lot are Jailer and Monarch still sets the game in the hands of the random neutral. Jailer's really the only one that can set the game more in the hands of town and allow town to control what happens, the swings from Coven to neutral to town. As it stands, not guaranteeing Jailer in this role list specifically is really damaging to the ability for the role list to not be swingy. And a ranked role list ought to not be swingy. We don't want swings in the role list. Now, that's my take on the current one. What I would prefer to see is town power stays there, and the list of towns stays relatively as it is. Either replace random neutral with another neutral evil, because neutral evils are totally fine and add a lot to the game. I don't know if that's great, though, because that doubles the chance of Doomsayer. Doomsayer's not problematic, but having 2 Doomsayers in a game might be problematic. But it wouldn't really work to add a Coven here, so maybe add another town role? I don't know, I'd have to see exactly how the balance of things breaks down as it is, and see if it is incredibly Coven-sided as I'm expecting it to be. If it's incredibly Coven-sided, then they should just add another town role. But I do think that either way, random neutral needs to be removed. Jailer doesn't necessarily need to be added, but if we're sticking with this, it should be switched for town power. Other than that, I don't have any problems with it. I think the Coven list, totally fine. Having neutral evil in a game is awesome. I think neutral evil should be a part of ranked. It's got a decently high win rate. It doesn't necessarily rely on others to win. It's a good addition to ranked. I'm glad this is here. I just wish they went with a different role list. And I know they're testing stuff out. That's totally fair. I just don't see this as being whatsoever a good or final or enjoyable role list. If you get that random neutral, as Apocalypse, it'll be exciting for the first couple of games, and then you'll be like, oh, I can't win. That sucks. In Town of Salem 1, when we had a random neutral killing in the game, Season 5, I believe this was. Might have been Season 4. No, this was Season 4. In Season 4, when there was neutral killing, we had a problem where Werewolf would literally just attack the jailer with the hopes of maybe they're just being a doctor. But, like, you've got a 50-50, more likely, it's actually worse than that for the werewolf, that they're dying, and they just go for it because otherwise they have absolutely no shot at winning the game. That's kind of what I see happening here. And, obviously, Jailer not being guaranteed in the role list makes it difficult to have that exact situation, but once Mayor reveals, or once you know who Monarch is or anything like that, it's just... Random neutrals are not going to be fun. They're not going to be viable for winning. It's just going to be a role that you roll every once in a while and lose off of. And I don't like having that in ranked. I think that ranked should be I don't think that rank necessarily should be town versus coven, obviously with neutral evil being added in, but I think that with the way the roles are currently set up, town versus coven is about all that makes sense. Anyways, that's my thoughts on this whole patch, on all the new stuff added, on the ranked rule list. Hope it's enjoyable to watch this video. I know my take's a little different than a lot of people's. A lot of people do like having the random neutral in, but just from having so much experience in ranked, it's really not that fun to have a role like that in the role list, and I kind of really hope it gets taken out. Glad ranked practice is around. Expect some videos in it, because that's probably all I will play and from here until when ranked comes out, maybe with a couple games of all any, but I'm not interested in the other modes. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks again.